welcome everybody. This is the third episode of Crucial Skills for Scientists. There was one before where we all looked at how we can write better papers and reports and grants. And today we have a very fascinating story. I have, that was a dilemma when I was doing my PhD, and it's a dilemma every student has. What do I do after the PhD? So here we have someone, Dr. Opher Shapira, who dared to do a theoretical high particle physics PhD. Sorry, Opher, I would think this is the most useless PhD you can do for going into industry, right? And being an entrepreneur and an inventor, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And here we have a story of someone who is a serial inventor, entrepreneur. He brought a company to be publicly traded, and now he's in charge of basically the R&D licensing office at the Weizmann Institute, at the prestigious Weizmann Institute. So I'm super eager to hear the story here, because how do we go from theoretical physics to this? It's a Pele, but it shows one interesting thing that I say to all the students, when you do your PhD, you are not stuck in that. Then there is life after that. And then you do a PhD, you may like it, not like it, you would continue. Maybe you don't become a faculty, but you do some more amazing things than that, which is to start companies. So Opher, the stage is yours to razzle dazzle and impress us with your story.
Okay, I'll try not to do worse than razzle and dazzle, as you said. And I'm not sure that what I had after the PhD we can call life, but I'll try to talk about it anyway. So thank you. And I'm happy to talk to everybody here. I'm just one thing that I'm used to do it when I talk in real life, not in webinars, that if anybody has question, I really like people to stop me. I don't know how we do it here. If you want to just jump in or just raise a hand with the emoji or something, but don't be shy and stop me in the middle. If you have any question, if you want me to say anything in more details or anything. So, since I was asked to talk about lesson learned from my personal experience, I think it's the best way. I'll start by giving you what was my personal experience, what's just a short description of the stations in my professional lives. Then I talk about 2 or 3 things that I think are answering the title of the lecture. One is, what's the main differences as I see between the work in academic life and in industry? Because in my mind, there's a different mindset and different way you have to think about problems, and what are the differences, and if you want to adjust from one area to another, what do you need to do? After that, I'll talk a bit about patents, IP, intellectual property, the importance of them, or the lack of importance, depends on the industry. And I'll end up with what is actually the title of the lecture, the lessons, what I think are the key points if one wants to jump from one area or the academia to industry. What's the main point that I think are important for one to take with them? Okay, so I'll jump right in, and as I said, please stop me if you want at any point. So just to give you why was I asked to talk about that? So I give you my history, and I'll spare you the first 20 years of my life, which were very interesting, but not for this crowd, I think. And I'll talk about since I started the university, academic life. So I did this, was said in the introduction. I did my first degree in physics and computer science at Tel Aviv. And then I went to the United States to Yale University. I did my PhD at theoretical physics, very unfit for anything but academia. And it's not by chance, because at that time when I went to my PhD, I thought that was going to be my career. I'm going to be in academic life, I'm going to be a professor in one of the academic institutions. And somewhere along the line of my PhD, I found out that I'm not sure I'm fit to academic life or academic life fits me. Either way, I thought it's best if I move from academia to different areas. Although I really enjoyed my PhD time, and I thought that it's good to part. And I haven't applied to postdoc. I went to industry. I came back to Israel, start working, and 2 years after my first job, I took a job as vice president for development at a company who did the medical devices, which was a turning point in our life, because ever since then, that's what I'm mainly doing: medical devices, diagnostic areas between medical and other areas like computer science and other stuff. I worked there for a couple of years, and then I had an idea to start a new company. With a partner of mine, we started a company, we called it BioView, which was on the border between biology, computer science, and machine learning. We started it like any startup. The first idea we had, and I'll tell you a bit what the company did, because there's a lot of mistakes in this company that I'll refer to later on in my talk. We started this company with the idea that we'll develop a blood test for pregnant women to identify, to do prenatal diagnosis, and specifically identify fetuses with Down syndrome. That was the idea. We were really excited about it. In hindsight, it was not the best idea to start a company around, and I'll talk about it. But we started it. We were very excited. We advanced the development of both biology and computer science. And 2 years or 3 years down the road, we realized that we need to shift the company to a different direction. We shifted it from the prenatal into cancer diagnosis, which was much better market for us to do. And we developed a product for automation of tests that were done from cancer. We did it for hematological cancers, then for bladder cancer, and so on. I managed this company for 12 years. Along the way, we took it public, and I managed it as a public entity for a couple of years, and then I decided to move along. I moved on. I worked in several other industries, a couple of years in renewable energy, solar systems, and technologies around this area. A couple of years in medical aesthetics, lasers, and others technologies that were for medical aesthetics, and consulted several companies. And 2 people, entrepreneurs that started a company, they're actually both were graduates from the Weizmann Institute, approached me for my consultation. They did diagnostic tests for bladder cancer, which I had experience from my first company, for BioView. I joined them initially as a consultant, then we raised money, and I went in and managed a company again for a couple of years, 7 years. This company did diagnostic for cancer. And after that, about a year and a half ago, I joined Yeda, and ever since then, I'm doing here, trying to take the academic ideas and make them in the industry. So first of all, before I go into what the difference is, the whole thing that the whole line of my resume, when I'm looking back, is basically I'm focusing in the areas of the beginning of companies. That's where my sweet spot. That's what I like the best, is to work in companies that are at the beginning of their life. You have to build it up from the idea to make it into a product. Once it's a product, then you have to start selling it, and quarter to quarter increase the sale. It's less of interest to me. I think there's people that are better than me in that. So I'm concentrating in this first 5 to 7 years of companies, and that's what I like to do best. And I think I do fit to my character. And in a sense, in Yeda, it's more or less the same thing. We have a lot of ideas here. We have to take them out. We have to think whether they fit the industry, how to take them out. So it's just summarizes maybe my experience until now. So if you're going back, so this is just a short description of me and what I did. And now I want to give more flavor of what it takes to start with an idea in academic life and start and bringing it to the industry. And the main thing to do it is, first of all, you have to change your mindset. And I'll touch on several points that the mindset of thinking in academic life and industry are different, sometimes opposite. Before everything else, just as a general disclaimer that everybody who thinks to go to industry, or specifically in startups, so that's my experience. I'm not talking about big companies and big industries. One has to remember, just as a general disclaimer, most of startups fail. So you have to be a bit of a crazy guy to go there, because statistic is definitely against you. 30% succeed, even less, it depends. So you're going to an area which is, you're set yourself to with a very low chances to succeed, yet it's very exciting. I cannot say it's not, I did it several times. So for me, it's very exciting. But to be successful, you have to remember that you're playing a different game. You don't playing the game in the academia, you're playing a completely different game with completely rules. And it's better that you understand, one understands what the differences between the thinking in academia and thinking in the industry. And I'll try to touch several points. That's, first of all, the academic life are educating the people who work there to be very deep in a very narrow field. Usually where research is a very defined problem in a narrow field, and you go deep as you can to understand the problem and to solve it. If you're going to my PhD again, it was a very, very small problem in a big area of elementary particle, and within it, one of the theories that was at that time was very hot. It was called the Technicolor theory, and within it, to try to solve a small problem about mass differences of elementary particles. It was very, very the corner of the corner of the corner to try and figure out what's in it. So that's the education, and that's what you're supposed to do, to find a problem and go as deep as you can about it. When you go to industry, if you want to start a company, you have to shift your mind almost 180 degrees, because the one thing that hurts companies the most is that they don't know to say what we have at hand is good enough. The one company, you develop a product, you want to know where to take it out of the market. To take it out of the market, it would never be perfect. You always have room to improve it. Everybody, I'm sure, remember that, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, when you use PCs at home and you use Windows, every now and then you get what they call the blue screen. Bill Gates had it in one of his presentations on stage, the blue screen. That's something, of course, that you think, well, I cannot get a product out which every couple of days it will crash. Well, Microsoft did it, it crashes and everybody liked it. So you have to know what is the right time that you have something which is good enough, or the Americans said, the enemy of the good is the best. For the industry, it's crucial, because you're constantly in competition. You should assume all the time that you're not the only smart guy around it with this idea. There's like somewhere in Idaho, another bunch of people working on it, and somewhere, I don't know, in China working on it. So one of you will be first in the market. Yeah, and you have to make sure that you find the right spot, that it's good enough, and you take it out. I saw some statistics that 40-something% of companies are failing because they did what we called overdevelopment. They thought, no, it's not good enough. We have to take it more and develop it, continue and develop, and they miss the market. It's something that's completely different, as I said, from the industry. The other side that is different in when you are in academic life, as I said, you're very narrow in the problem, in a sense that you're looking at a very well-defined box that you're trying to resolve. In the industry, you have to look completely wide, because a product, one area of it is the technology, what's behind it, and it's of course the basis of all high-tech companies. They have a nice technology they want to develop, but the technology is not enough. When we in my first company in BioView, we had a product. It was we built a machine that we sold to laboratories in the United States and all over the place that did automation of cell sample scanning and analysis. So it involves some biological processes and an operation of a machine. You have to put this and that and press the buttons here and there. And I remember I was there with one of the lab managers, and he told me that it's very nice technology, but he told me, just remember, the guy who operates your equipment is the same guy that last week was flipping hamburgers at McDonald's. So that's how the machine has to work. It has to be fit for the guy, for the hamburger flipper from McDonald's. So you have to think not only the technology, but who is going to use it, how it's going to be easy for him, because these are the people who will define whether your product will get in the market or not. Is the end user, is the hamburger flipper. It's not the doctor that gets the results. So you have to think wide in areas that you don't used to think about, not only the technology, how much it would cost. And at the end, you want to make money out of it, and how much people are willing to pay, and how much profit does it leave to you. So all these are things that you usually don't think when you do research in academia, but you must think it when you go to the product. Which leads us, of course, to the second point, is the structure of the team that you're working with. In academic life, most likely you're working with people like you, or the same education, either they're your peers or your postdocs or your students, and you're doing the research with them. So you're talking the same language, you think the same thing. As I said before, and when you're industry, the whole thinking has to be different. You have to accommodate people for the marketing, for the finance people, for the user interface. All of these, which are usually don't, excuse my French, give a damn about the technology. They want to understand how to use the technology. They don't mind what's the black box behind it. And you have to look at the technology, do your research of the technology in line with them. To be blunt, they are more important sometimes, or in many of the cases, than the one that are developing the actual technology. It's also, I'll get to that later on, it's the borders between each discipline, between the marketing, between this scientific discipline, that actually set the success of the product, and I'll talk about it a bit later during this talk. The next point that I think is different is the definition of failure. If you're in academic life and you do a wonderful experiment or research about something, it can be a new target for developing a disease. It can be a new problem in chemistry to find a new structure of polymer, or what have you. You can do wonderful scientific result. You can run experiment. At the end, you might not get the result you want. You wouldn't find a target for this disease. You don't find the protein that does this or the other. Yet, the structure, the work that you did still is, you can publish it. You can get a paper out of it. So in the academic life reward system, I should say, you actually didn't fail. You get a paper. It may not be your best paper, it may not be something in the best magazine, but it is a publication, which is the currency of the academic life. Of course, there's no parallel to this in the industry. You cannot do a product, fail, and somehow get rewarded for it. So there's no room for it. So you have to, in a sense, do your research in the company, or do your work in the company, and try all the time, identify the point of no return, that if you continue to spend time on this, it will never succeed. You have to know where to stop it and how to think in a way that the failure is a failure. It's not that it will end up in a paper which might be very interesting to your peers. This is sort of related to another issue, which is what is the right solution, which in industry, right is not always right. What I mean by that, a right solution to a problem is not necessarily a right solution for the industry. I'll give a couple of examples. And when I started this talk, I told you about the first company, BioView, that we were very excited. We want to do prenatal diagnosis. We thought it's the best thing since sliced bread, and we'll be rich and famous in a couple of years. What we didn't do is look what is the actual problem. Of course, it's very interesting. If one can do blood tests to a pregnant woman and identify whether the fetus has Down syndrome or not, it sounds exciting and it's very interesting scientifically for sure, even for us. And then me and my partner did our first mistake. We said, sure, we would buy this product, we would do it, no question about it. I was at that time a young father, had 2 kids. We did amniocentesis, and we were, of course, concerned about it. And we said, well, if we could do it without it, surely and everybody would do it. So let's never do this. Don't take yourself as an example. And secondly, it's not only that, we didn't do the calculation, and we can do it just here, 2 minutes to show you. I don't know if anybody of you knows how many pregnancies there is in the United States, but the number I remember from back then is, I think it was 3 million at the time. 3 million pregnancies in the United States, the single biggest market in the world for such products. And surely you know that in the United States, there's a big debate between pro-choice and pro-life. So about 50% of the population in the United States doesn't care about prenatal diagnosis because they're pro-life, and I think it's not you shouldn't do anything with the results of it. And if you do continue the calculation, you find out that it's a very interesting problem, but there's no market for that. There's no reason to start a company around it. And so that's one example why the right solution or the exciting solution is not always right. I'll give you another example from medical again, from diagnosis. What if you diagnose a disease that has no cure? Is it a good product or bad product? Scientifically, it's wonderful. You find marker that will diagnose a problem, a health problem. Definitely it's interesting scientifically. Definitely it's interesting because it might be the first step to develop a cure or develop a medicine or develop a solution for the problem. But the market, it's a problem. No one wants to get a result. You might have something and we can't do anything about it. Nobody wants to do it. It's a right, scientifically, it's not right market-wise. And of course, others that it's just pure commercial. No phone manufacturer will make a phone that doesn't need an upgrade every couple of years. The company will go bankrupt. So it's things that seems to be great solution. I'll develop a bulb, a light bulb that never burned, and it can be forever. It's not necessarily a good commercial solution. So the right for the research and for academia is not necessarily right for the market. And I would say the last point that came to my mind, which will take us to the next chapter of the talk, is publication. Of course, as I said before, academic life are all about publication. Publish or perish. You have to publicize. This is the system. This is how people in academia are educated. You go to industry, it's anything but it. You want to make it secretive. You want to make sure that you protect yourself. Nobody else can do what you're doing. You have to make sure that this is yours and you'll be the first to the market. And if you have any tricks in your up your sleeve that you want to make them will have to make the product, you have to keep them to yourself. There are issues that you can protect. It's patents, and I'll talk about it in 2 minutes from now. But it's also a tool that you have to know how to use. It's not necessarily always a good tool. But definitely your mindset is secretive. It's not publicizing, but being secret. So all of these differences are really has to be in your mind when you're jumping from one field to the other, because they're different way of thinking. Maybe the one thing that is common is, as American said, cash is king. It's definitely for industry. You cannot, companies has to have enough cash to develop. I'm sure the industry also grants and everything are somewhat defining the way that people are working. It's of course much more in the industry. Also competition is something that's more or less the same. You want to be the first. Although one thing that it does differentiate the industry from the academic life. Academic life first is of course the most important. In industry, it's not necessarily. It's always it's a question to be what's better, to be first in the market or best in the market, second but better. Again, I'm all kind of American MBA type of saying that in Wall Street that the pioneers are dying with arrows in their backs. So the second company is coming and killing the first company. And but it's a very important thing to have as well. I think someone wrote me some remark here. I don't know if software. Okay, someone asked about software. I'll talk about software in a second, how this differentiates. It's a very good question. Okay, so this is just mindset differences between the two industries. So if anybody questions, I'll be happy to answer. If not, I'll go on. All right, so I ended up a couple of minutes ago about what's publication and what's patents. So let me talk a couple of minutes what are patents and what their importance and how to use them. Patent, I'll give you 2 minutes about what are patents and intellectual property. Patents are an agreement between a country and inventor. The country tells the inventor, look, we want you to invest your time, effort, and money in this, so you'll help advance the better of the community, and we're willing to cut a deal with you. You'll do it, you'll invest, and we give you exclusivity. No one else could do this or sell the products of this, of what you're doing in our country without your permission. So that will incentivize companies to do development, to run and develop things that will cost them a lot of money. The example everybody knows from the recent years is, of course, vaccines, for example, which cost a lot of money to develop. Companies wouldn't have the incentive to develop vaccine or medicines or anything like it if they wouldn't know that they have several years that they can be the only one who sell this. And this is the patent protection. The country tells the companies, you develop this pill that helps solve a problem. We'll give you that many years that only you can sell it in our country. So that's the agreement between the country and an inventor. And this agreement is very important, yet it has a lot of problems, and it's related to the question I was asked about software. Patents are as strong as you can show that someone is infringing. That's the word of it, meaning that they're using the patent without taking your permission. And many of the patents, specifically in software, are unforceable. You cannot force them. I don't know how to say it in English. You have to it's very hard to enforce them because it's an algorithm. You cannot say what's in it or not. It's hard to prove it's the same idea. So it's not, patents are not good for everybody. They are good for industry or for areas when it's hard to protect them and to prove that if someone doing it, they actually stepping on your toes. It doesn't help anybody if you cannot enforce them. And what's not on top of that, a patent, when one writes a patent, one has to disclose within the patent many details. That's part of the agreement between the country and the inventor. It's yours. We give you the exclusivity for several years, but for that, you have to tell us what you did. So once it's out of exclusivity, everybody can use it. Some companies, Teva in Israel, did a lot of money based off it because they waited for patents to expire and immediately make what they call generic pills based on it. So you have to disclose everything. Sometimes you don't want to disclose. You prefer not disclosing and losing this protection, so to speak, than disclosing whatever you do, because you say, if I disclose what I'm doing, someone else may do something similar, which will not be exactly what I do, will not have to pay me money, and they will go to the market and kill me. So you have to, it's a very delicate game and you have to play it. And there's other complexities to this because patents are local. I mean, you have a territorial, you have to write them in some country and not all over the place. So you have to see how to do it. It's a lot of strategic how to do it. Basically, as I said, they're absolutely not fit for software development or anything. They're very, very much good for medical pills and treatments. Everything in between, it's something you have to see how it fits and how much it protects you and what's the risk you're taking with it. Yet it's always coming to the point that in the industry, publication and making things public are very dangerous. You don't want to do it. I think that's more or less what I have to say about patents. It's of course what I'm doing now at Yeda, because Yeda, that's what we're doing. We're selling patents. We're taking a patent and trying to create the companies around them. And we have the same dilemmas, as I said before, because a lot of the work we see not necessarily well protected by patents. So we try to see how to commercialize them, although their patent protection are not 100%. We have our own considerations. Sometimes we think, okay, it doesn't fit to give license to a big company because we're not protected. It's better to make it to start our own venture and try to protect it by doing more on the way. I think the best way that I think about patents is that it's at the end of the day, everything you do is like a competition. You start and running with your product, hopeful that you'll be the first in the market, the best in the market, and you'll be able to take market shares when you do you do with your products. Patents, to me, are like field mines. You're running straight ahead and you're throwing behind you some mines, so the competition cannot run back after you. They can take the long road because here is a mine, there is a mine. It will complicate the way to get what you're doing. It will make their life difficult. It will not prevent them. You should assume that they're not fully protected and no one can protect you. You should continue running as fast as crazy, but you can make their life harder. And that's, I think, the main thought around the patents. So I talked about the different mindset between industry and academic life, and I talked a bit about patents and now some key points that I think are important, unless there's more questions or people want me to expand on anything. Not everyone at once. Yes, I get it in writing, so I have to open it. Not only I have to open it, I have to put my glasses on. You said the strategy of searching for the market and then attempting to get ideas. The question is, would you say that the strategy of searching for profitable market and then attempting to raise idea that can meet the need within the niche could be successful strategy for a startup? Well, that's a good question. The question is whether, well, what's come first, the chicken or the egg? Whether you want to look what is needed and then look for the technology that solve it, or you have a solution and then I have a solution, let's look for a problem. That's basically the question. And practically, I think the starting from the problem is always better than solution, because sometimes you have a solution at hand, you try to enforce and convince that there actually is a problem that this solution solves. The one problem that startups always have and inventors has, and it's one of the risks when you're running a startup, is you get too much in love with your solution. And it's a risk because you try to force your solution on problems that doesn't exist, or say, yeah, I'm sure when people see it at the end, they probably would like it, they just don't understand. And you don't like to hear that, no, they're not. So the best way is to look for a solution, a problem, and then see what's in my skills or my thing might solve this solution. I think it's a better way in my experience. Okay, so if we are there, some key points that I thought of maybe worth mentioning. Oh, just another question. Oops, how should I see it? Do you think adding partners is a key step to good startup? That's one question. And looking back, would you have done anything different? Okay, so that's a deep question. I'll get to both of them. So first of all, what's the, I would say, key point that someone getting into this game? First of all, it's the one advice that I failed myself to take when I gave it to myself, but yet I think it's a good advice. You have to learn that to understand it's one big game. All the idea of startups, it's a game. There's the rules. You understand who is against who, and don't take it personally. Of course, I failed. I said all along the way, not taking it personally. So I always took it personally. But looking back, I would say how stupid was I to take it personally. It just was this and then the other. So if one can take it, it's already halfway to be successful. Don't take it personally. But assuming it's very hard, as the Godfather say in the movie, it's all personal. So let's go to things that may be more important. I think the way that the take that I have that can help you be successful, because as I said, statistics is against you and no one knows who is going to be successful. It's sort of a balance, and which is a nice way, or being with a split personality, which is more, it's a more accurate description of the situation. Because there's several things that you have to live within you simultaneously. You cannot go and start a company without believing that you are the next big thing since sliced bread. You have to believe it. You have to strongly believe that what you have in your hand is amazing, is wonderful. It's going to change the world dramatically. You have every day to wake up and understand and believe it, every bone in your body, that this is it. It's the best thing you ever thought about. Yet, with the same time, you have to know every day that you're most likely going to fail. So this is a split personality that you have to live together. It's very complicated, but you have to go on and say, yeah, it's great, it's wonderful. And then you have to always understand, most likely we're going to fail. 9 out of 10 fails in the first couple of years, and then the next are failing along the way. So this is one split personality that you have to live within together. You have to generate within yourself this excitement and enthusiasm that, yeah, today it's going to be the greatest day because today we're going to solve it. And then to know that you're going to fail. I don't know how you do it, but I don't know if you can learn to do it, but that's something you have to know. Similarly, you have to be as stubborn as 2 years old, but also you have to be very flexible. You have to, it's like running against a wall. You have to bang your head on the wall. After a couple of times, you have to figure out whether this hole is a brick hole or it's a plywood that you can break it or not. But until you realize, you have to be stubborn. You have to make sure, and if you want starting a company and leading it, you have to have everybody around you see you and believe that, yeah, we're going to break the wall, if not now in a couple of minutes. Yet you have to understand that there's a fine line between breaking the wall in your head, and you have to know where is to identify it. So be as stubborn as you can, but be as flexible as you can. It's another split personality that you have to live with. The third point is related to it. I would say is keep your eye on the target. I like to sail. The best thing I like to do is sail. And sometimes you're sailing and the wind is just, you have a headwind. You have to go there. So what you do when you sail, you do like zigs and zags and you're going back and forth. But the one thing you do is keep an eye where you want to go. And this is very much like you do in the companies. You have a target, you want to go there. There's tons of obstacles. You're a small boat when you're a startup. There's waves, there are people against you, there are big ships that cutting your way, but you have to keep an eye on the target and always make sure that you're knowing where you're going. So that's one part of the split personality. The other part is you have to be ready to move the target. So again, how you do both, it's very hard. I tell again from my own experience, when I started, I told you the first company, we started with prenatal diagnosis. This was our target. We worked hard as hell to get there. We got nice results. We had very nice first results. We thought that we are on the way. But then we had to be very honest with ourselves and say, no, this is not the right target. Although we solved part of the way. We believed that we could continue and solve it even more, but we had to move the target. We have to realize that the best target is to do within the cancer world and not the cancer diagnostic world and not in the prenatal. It was a very hard decision because you get involved in love with it. You get in love with the problem. If it's you're half successful, even more in love with the problem. Yet you have to be flexible and say, no, this is nice, but we have to go this way. Again, how to do it, just do it. I don't know more than that to tell you. Now, for one of the questions that someone asked me is about teams. Teams is everything. I mean, it's very important to have a multidisciplinary team. It's crucial. It's crucial from two ways. One way is one aspect is I believe that most of the successful startups or more successful inventions are coming from taking are sitting in the borders between two disciplines. You can do a research, and this is also something that differentiates the academic from the industry. You can do a lot of wonderful work in one discipline and another discipline. If you look at companies that were successful, when they took and mixed the technologies from two disciplines, that's where the jumps came up. Again, from my own experience, the first company, when we had and we did also the question, what do you start with, the problem or solution? We knew, me and my partner, that we have experience with some image processing, with building automated microscopies, some biology we knew, not too many. And then we started working with hospitals, talk to doctors, look at how they work, and we try to see what they're doing, what's if there's anything interest for us. And we went to one of the labs in one hospital in Israel, and we saw people that are the lab staff that were looking at some blood samples to identify cancerous cell within them. And they were sitting with eyes in the microscope, and they had a piece of paper next to him with a line across that piece of paper. And they were looking at them, actually putting one dot at the right side of the line and then on the left side. And I asked him, what are you doing? And I say, we're counting. If we see a cell that is looked to as cancerous, we put a dot at the left side. If we see it, it's not cancer, normal, we put on the right side. And then we look and we count how many dots we have, and we say the prevalence of the cancerous cell is that and that. And I asked him, why are you doing it this way? Why don't you use automation for that? Or using the image processing? And they say, can it be done? I told them, look, don't you read in the papers there's an American satellite taking picture of a matchbox in Moscow, and you can read what's written on it? And say, yeah, but how it's related to this? And they were extremely good biologists at the time. They just didn't know whatever going in the image processing. And we told them, okay, if you don't know, we'll show you. And then we built a machine who did just that. We just did a machine that counts for them automatically. And then we expanded it with biology. But it's again, just taking something we knew from one discipline, which is image processing and machine learning and machine vision, and took it to an area that was completely uncharted water for that. And this is one example of many that it's always the case. It's always the case if you take things that you one discipline to another, that's where it happens. And that's why teams are crucial, because if you take teams of different disciplines, it always gives you wonderful thing. When my kid was teenage and I was angry with him, when I finished shouting at him, he told me, I tell you what the Dalai Lama said once. He said, if you're shouting and you're only listening to yourself, you'll never learn something new. But if you listen to me, you might learn something. So and that's exactly what you should do in a company. You should take teams of people from different disciplines and listen to them, because what you know, you already know, and you'll never. It's not going. You're not going to learn from yourself. But listen to other people in the team. It's very important. There's other things. Some of it's more and personal things. First of all, the thing that I said before, and it should run, is the cash is important. The cash of the company is crucial. It's some people, I don't know how many of you heard of it, startups and so on, people are always concerned that there will be an investor and I get less percentage in the company, I get diluted, but it's the biggest mistake. Cash is king. Get cash. Don't care about your percentage of the company. It's the stupidest thing you can do. No company died from dilution. I know many companies who died from lack of cash. So don't do that. The other thing is relate to a Roman story. In the Roman Empire, when a guy triumphed from a battle, came back to Rome, he was all parades and he's running at parades, and they had a very smart thing going on. There was a slave running next to him and keeps telling him, memento mori, remember you're mortal. Now, in the how it's related to us, because companies, you have to have someone who's going to be pessimistic. You're going to start a company, you're very optimistic, everything going to be great, it's wonderful. You have to have this guy. Usually it's the money guy, it's the CFO of the company, keep telling you in your ear, hey, we're going to fail, we're going to die, we're going to die, don't do it, we're going to die. You have to have it in your team, someone to doing it. It's crucial to the success. Couple of other points maybe is to say that this is general, I would say, management point. Make decisions. People think, okay, let's think about it another day, another day, another day. The most important thing, make a decision, even if they're a bad decision. A bad decision is better than no decision. Specifically, with us, as I said, you're a small boat in an ocean full of sharks, waves, winds not going your way. If you not make a decision, you're going to either flip over or being eaten by the sharks or what have you. Make a decision and don't be afraid to fail. You have, in a day, when you're running a company, you have 15 decisions a day that you're making. It's a good day if you were right in 8 of them. It's a great day if we're right 10 of them. Just make a decision and don't be afraid to fail. Actually, most of the companies failed at the first product. Fail. It's the most important thing. And the last 2 points, I would say, first, you have don't underestimate the luck in everything. Luck in startups is very important. Luck can be when you're pitching your product to some investor. It's not your best day. Just bad luck, you did bad presentation. It's not the best day for the investor. You did a presentation, something didn't work. Luck is a lot. Make sure that, I'm not saying it as a joke. If you recognize it, it's not that bad to fail, because you know what, it's bad luck. Let's go and do it the next day. We have better luck. And it happens, because as the American says, luck favors the bold. If you're bold enough, luck will go your way at the end. And last but not least, if I haven't convinced you already not to do it, so make sure that you have support from home, because your family is going to suffer as well. It's not only you suffering. So make sure that the family supports you, because it's going to be a bumpy road, and everybody should be buckled up, and it's something else. Maybe I'll say the last thing, and if there's a question, I'll be happy to answer. Jumping from academia to industry is challenging personally to some of the people, because I assume most of the people on this call is either in academia or doing their PhD, or so I guess all of you were very successful in your life so far. You were good students at your elementary school, you were a good student in high school, then you were accepted to good universities, you got a tenure at good university, you become professors. You're successful people all over. You go out and you go to your first guy that you want to get money for your venture. All you hear is how stupid you are, and how stupid the idea is, and you don't understand anything, and go back home and do your homework, because it's the stupid thing I heard. Now, if you remember when I said a couple of minutes ago, it's all a game. That's their part of the game. You don't understand at the beginning. You think, whoa, what stupid guy I am. And so it's a different experience. For being, very successful, you're becoming the one in the dance that nobody wants to dance with him. And you get it left, right, and center. So that's why you have to be stubborn, you have to be optimistic, you have to be all of the above that I said before. Without that, it will not work. And I think that's all I had to say. That's my experience, like it or not. And I'll be happy to answer a question if you have any.
Toda rabba, Opher. Amazing. Amazing. I have one question that in fact, I had when I'm more on the academic side, and I did an MBA, but I didn't go into the business much. One question was, what's the importance or role, for example, of legal especially with comparison to all the bureaucracy, administration, government stuff, and so on? How can those be a factor in success or failure of a startup in your experience?
Well, yeah, legal, I tell you two things. First of all, I would say that the best advice I got was a friend of mine that was the lawyer of my first company, that he told me, first of all, do everything you do as if everybody will find out about it. Don't cut corners, because it will explode at the worst point of your company. And he was right. Whenever I didn't listen to him, it exploded in my face in the worst time ever. But lawyers are I hope there's not too many lawyers in the call, because they're going to be sued soon. But lawyers have a definite job. They can tell you, and they should tell you, what are the risks and what are the problems they see, and they're very good at finding problems everywhere and the risks, and what risk we can mitigate and what not, and what will be the penalty if we don't. And at the end, you have to make sure that's one of the risks you have to take. You say, okay, this is the list of risks. You will solve this risk 1 to 10. The last 3 risks I will take. I have to take them. You must take risks. You take risks all the time, and you fail sometimes. That's I wouldn't go there. I would say, I don't know if you're related to bureaucracy related with governments and things like that. Some industries are much more regulated. Unfortunately, I worked in one of them, because health industry is very much regulated. So you have to be much more regulated than if you're doing, I don't know, software application for your iPhone. You could just hire 3 kids, give them pizzas and cola, and after 6 months, you have an application for your iPhone and you're happy. But no regulation. The last 2 years of pandemic, everybody now knows what's FDA and what's clinical trials, because everybody talks about and have their opinion about it. But it's highly regulated. Of course, aircraft industry is highly regulated. Then you have to work with the bureaucracies. There's no way around it. You need more money, more time for that. But that's the only thing I can say about it.
Thank you. Any question from the attendants? Yes, go ahead.
Would you think that looking for a mentor to help you start a startup, would it be better to take someone who's active in the industry or someone who has retired?
First of all, thank you, because I forgot to say it, mentor is crucial. If you are heading a startup, you're the loneliest guy around, really, because all the investors always want to see what's going on, and they expect and they're pressing you. All your employees are pressing you from the other side. It's like 2 pyramids, one on top of the other. You're just in the center of the 2 tips of the 2 pyramids. And you also needs to sell all the time. You sell to the investors. Look, we're great. We have some glitches, but we're great. We know how to do it. We know how to solve it. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Yeah, for the employees, you have to say, yeah, we have money. We're going to find out. Everything is wonderful. Well, you have money for 2 months. You don't know how to hell you're going to solve the problems, but that's what you have. So having a mentor, which is someone outside, is not working in a company and not one of the investors, is crucial, because if I had 20 years ago, or when I started my first company, me of today, I would do half of the mistakes I did, and it's worth a lot. It doesn't matter if he's right now working in the industry or retired. It just has to be someone that you trust, that you can open totally and say, here is the problems. I'm scared as hell. I don't know what to do. And what do you suggest we do? And solve it. I have one experience like that when my chairman at the time was very helpful to me. We had close to no money in the company, and we had the debt to a microscopy company that sold us microscope. I remember exact number, 839,000 shekels. We were owing them. We had, I don't know, 100,000 shekels in our bank account, and we had salaries coming out. I was hysterical. I was never owing anyone such amount of money. I don't know what to do. And he told me, I went to my chairman and asked him what to do. What happened? Are we dead? We doomed? We crazy? And he told me, you owe them? I told him, yes. I said, so it's their problem, not yours. Let's start with this. Second, let's go and talk with them. And he went with me and we talked with them. And we went out. And it's important because sometimes that's all you need. Someone will say you, it's not that bad. I hope it answers what you asked me.
Yes, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, if not, this says, oh, there is Kusha talking about the mentor incentives crucial to get good mentors.
Talking about the mentor, our incentives. I don't know. Incentive, you know, the best mentor is, first of all, something, you know, we are Jewish people who like to give access to everybody. So people like to be mentors. It's a good thing to be. And people actually, you know, if people would like my advice, I would be happy to give it. And all my friends that were in companies and they got to some point they'd like to give it. Incentive always help, you know, but it's not, I don't think mentors doing it because of it. I think they like it. It's, you know, the second company I managed, I was then, I don't know, in my 50s, I think. And it was a startup. And clearly one of my incentives, it makes me feel young to go there and work with young people and be there. And so it's nice to be around young companies. It's fun for people who has this gene aberration that they like it. They like to do it. They like to be like with small companies. They like to help. It's actually the mentorship is some of the reward. I don't think an incentive is really crucial for that.
You have another few questions there on the chat. I don't know. People don't talk. They write. It's easier to ask the question, folks.
It is recommended to start a startup in the academy or to wait after you get out. No, I don't think you can do both. I don't think you can do your PhD and do. You can. I'm putting aside my conflict of interest that as CEO of Yeda, everything you do in Weizmann belongs to me, so you cannot start a company when you're working at the university. But other than that, if I'm putting this
Opher.
Yes.
I think he asked the question a little different. I think if I read the question correctly, is it, for example, you are in running a lab and you want to do a startup, is it better to do from the university via, for example, Yeda, or to go out and do something on your own separately from the university? That I think that's how I read the question.
Okay. So first of all, I think to start a company, you have to be out. It's like you cannot learn how to swim theoretically. You have to jump to the water. At one point, you have to jump. You have to jump to the water and start swimming. And there's no shortcut. You can prepare yourself as much as you can, understand this, but at the end, because you know, when again I'm talking from my experience, you start a company, you think, wow, I'm a scientist, I have wonderful ideas, I'll do research outside and I'll research. And then you end up half of the time you're taking care of who's cleaning the office, how to pay the rent, what the car of the employees, and you have to be there. You have to do all of this. It's part of this because it gives you the priority. You know that you cannot do research forever because you see the cash going down. You know that you cannot sell dreams because investor doesn't buy the idea, so maybe the idea is not that good. Until you talk to many investors, you think your idea is wonderful. Someone has to help you refine your ideas until they are becoming wonderful. So you have to do it. You cannot do it theoretically. So if I don't know if this was the answer, but a question this will answer.
Maybe last question, Opher, is will the MBA help to do a startup or not?
I don't think so. I think, you know, it gives you tools. It gives you understanding of the jargon of what is doing. It's nice to have. It's not a necessity. I would put it this way.
Okay, Opher, toda rabah. You really impressed. It was great to hear from you. And I think maybe it lit some lights in the heads of people who think about getting into entrepreneurship, and they have to think twice about what they have to do with their family, with themselves, and all the other petty problems and the self-esteem and everything else. It's a great thing when it gets publicly traded, then you are at the peak, but there is a long route before, and I think Opher has shown us all the obstacles and challenges. Toda rabba. Thank you. We really appreciate it. It was a great presentation. Thank you.
תודה רבה.
Shabbat shalom. Bye bye.